Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Playing Every SNES Game, where I play every Super Nintendo game in the US release order for around an hour, and I tell you what I thought about it. This is a special episode as we've reached the end of the first year of Super Nintendo games, as in, this is the anniversary of a Super Nintendo's launch in terms of releases. And we've got some interesting games to talk about today. I do want to mention I won't be talking about Mario Paint in this episode, even though the timeline says I should, since it's a peripheral game and I've decided to exclude those from this series. I did love playing Mario Paint as a kid, but I mean, you have a mouse and a keyboard right now, or you're watching this video on a device with a touchscreen, so the need for Mario Paint has kind of passed. Shout out to the bug swatting minigame and composing tool though. Anyways, let's get started with the first game we're actually talking about today, which is Rampart. Rampart is a very strange video game. There seems to be an emphasis on two players here, is when you start the game, you just see a screen that has two people. But I can't try that out because I don't know a single person willing to put themselves through what I'm putting myself through here in this project. So this discussion is limited to a one-player game. When you start a level, you pick a castle and you place some cannons. I assume this process is better described in the manual as it is not described in game at all, but I don't have time to just read some book when I want to play video games, so I'm just guessing here. After you pick a castle and place some cannons, you have to shoot at some ships for a very short phase. During this phase, the ships will fire back at you and knock down bits of the walls of your fortress. After this phase ends, you go into a building and capture phase, where your objective is to re-solidify the wall to your original fortress, as in enclose it, so you can keep the cannons you had, and if you don't reseal any territory, you lose the game. Once you get your own base resealed, you can move to capture another castle near you, and if you do, you have more territory to place cannons on, and you get more cannons to place. You then move to the next shooting phase, wash, lather, rinse, repeat. The repair phase is interesting as you get weird Tetris-like pieces, and you have to be able to place an entire piece to place a piece at all. I ended up being fairly frantic during this phase, as I really just wanted to make sure I could keep playing the level, and the order you get pieces in often just feels awful. I think I got unlucky many times during my play session, or I'm very bad at the game. Probably a combination of both. I should mention in later levels there's some kind of raiding party that approaches your base and obstructs your building capabilities. I don't know what happens with them exactly if you try to capture them or something. I didn't get the chance to check that out before I got a game over and walked away for slightly too long, and the game just decided that I didn't choose to continue, so I just decided to be done with the game. I don't really know how I feel about this game. It isn't awful, but I definitely don't find the gameplay loop compelling enough to want to come back to it. This seems interesting to you, it's fast enough to just jump in, but this isn't really in my wheelhouse. Speaking of my wheelhouse, Soulblazer is the second game for the Super Nintendo published by Enix and developed by Quintet, following ActRaiser, which is a tough act to follow, but I believe Soulblazer does a decent job of that, and it is quite a different game. Soulblazer is a top-down 2D action RPG, a bit reminiscent of Zelda, but a bit more dungeon crawling as opposed to puzzle-focused, I would say. Specifically, what I mean is you spend most of your time in a dungeon fighting monsters, and there aren't as many reaction or tool-based puzzles. There are puzzles, and there is an emphasis on talking to people, but you unlock those things by defeating enemies. You are again an avatar of a celestial being, coming down to the realm to try to restore civilization, as it appears that some evil has sealed it away. The way you restore people in this game is by defeating all the enemies popping out of a spawn portal in the dungeon until the enemies stop spawning. Then when you step on that portal, some aspect of the world is restored or changed. The combat feels pretty good, but some hitboxes feel a little off, and the optimal strategy in the first two dungeons at least that I could tell was finding ways to abuse the primitive enemy AI so that you could hit enemies while they could not hit you. I don't think the combat here is groundbreaking, and the one magic ability you get at the beginning of the game is a little unwieldy, but it doesn't feel bad. If you notice the spirit thing rotating around me, when you press the magic button, it spends some gems to shoot a fireball out in the direction you're facing from where the spirit is, and you can kind of force the spirit to go in some places, like if you're pressing against a wall, but I don't know. It's a weird mechanic. I like the aspect of unlocking new items and people to talk to and abilities from making progress in the dungeon, and the fact you don't really lose much progress if you die in the dungeon. I would talk more about how exactly unlocking things works and what happens when you interact with people, but saying almost anything interesting about that would be spoilers, and you should definitely play this game if you haven't. So I'm gonna save spoilers for a potential full Soulblazer video down the road. Quintet really made an effort to make games that felt like they belonged on the Super Nintendo, as opposed to any older console, and I don't think you can really go wrong at least trying this game out. Although I do think I prefer ActRaiser. I'll have to play them both more to figure that out. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I did not make it 10 minutes playing Super Play Action Football, mainly because I had a violently negative reaction to the perspective of play, but if I'm being honest, that was the least of my problems with this game. Initially, presentation-wise, I think this game looks really good. However, it seems in this game's effort to actively not be John Madden football, it even has the NFL license when the first Madden game for the Super Nintendo did not. It forgot that it needed to be a functional football game? I hate the way play selection seems to work, where you move a square around and hover over a play, and I think that's what your team does. I hate the play perspective. I hate that you don't appear to be able to pass the ball to a specific player. I don't know if it's actually the case. I didn't read the manual because I didn't want to. But man, this game just gave me such a bad initial reaction. I just couldn't be encouraged to spend time playing it, which is very disappointing because I thought all the pre-game animations had pretty high quality art to it. I don't know if other people that look at this will react the way I did, but you gotta give me one. I've played so many games I dislike for so long for this series, so just let me pass on this one, because I sure couldn't pass the ball in this game. And we hop from one game that I really disliked right into another. I managed to play Magic Sword for a lot longer though. Magic Sword appears to be a very direct port of an arcade game, and boy does that really rub me the wrong way in console games. I guess I'll have to admit that I'm a bit spoiled by the time that I was really into games. The PlayStation and Nintendo 64 were out, and the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube generation were the most significant part of my gaming adolescence. So I managed to dodge this arcade game port trend when it comes to console games. You know, when I think of arcade game ports, I think of games like Soul Calibur 2 and Dance Dance Revolution, not something like Magic Sword here. I don't think the gameplay is horrible in this game, and the graphics are pretty reasonable, but I just don't know why you would want to sit down and play a game like this for a significant amount of time on the Super Nintendo. Maybe this is an incorrect opinion or whatever, but arcade games are designed inherently to be operated in a shorter coin-by-coin setting, where the appeal is the whole machine as opposed to just playing the game. I digress. In this game, you fight enemies, you get power-ups, you free allies with different weapons from doors, you advance up floors, and fight bosses. I unfortunately didn't care enough for this game to engage with its mechanics further. This game's not bad, but I don't like games without an obvious sense of progression, and this game literally just lets you start from whatever floor you want, which is kind of wild to me. Why put levels in order if you can just pick where to start? There's something about this game I'm missing because this game is not for me. Could be for you if for some reason you want to play a port of an arcade game for the Super Nintendo, or you could, boot up MAME. I just want a little bit more out of games if I'm taking the time to play them on a console. This would absolutely be a game you rent for a weekend as opposed to paying full price for it back in the day, unless you were somehow gonna spend $50 playing Magic Sword in the arcade. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time is another arcade port, this time by Konami instead of Capcom like Magic Sword was, but I like this game better than Magic Sword in almost every way. It's hard to put into words exactly how smooth this game feels to play. The controls are like butter. It almost doesn't even feel like you're playing a Super Nintendo game. It controls so smoothly. I don't know if that statement makes sense, but that's how I feel. I don't want to go overboard with the praise on that end, though. Your moveset for each turtle, while different, feels pretty limited in general. The primary differing appeal of each turtle is their weapon of choice. I used two different turtles. They felt unique and enough. I may be missing something control-wise, as I didn't read the manual for this game either, as I straight up didn't need to make what felt like a lot of progress in this game. TMNT 4 looks awesome. This is some of the best sprite work we have seen in this series so far, in my opinion. The game plays like a very traditional arcade beat-em-up. You move through stages, you pick up health power-ups, you fight bosses, etc. I genuinely just had quite a bit of fun playing this game, but it really did start to feel repetitive towards the end of the play session. The game puts a lot of effort into trying to make levels feel different and distinct, at least visually, but enemies repeat a lot, just like they do in most beat-em-ups. The stages feel like they're the exact correct length for my taste. No stage I played out of the 4 or 5 that I saw felt too short or too long. And there was even a checkpoint in the last stage I played. I'm not sure exactly how long this game is. It feels like you could just sit down and play this game with a friend and beat it in an hour if the last boss that I got to was even close to the final boss, because I only played for around 40 minutes. But this throwing enemies at the screen thing felt way too inconsistent to be enjoyable for me. I'm sure I was missing something control-wise here, and I don't believe it was the game's fault. If it is, this throwing mechanic sucks and it shouldn't have been this way. But I think there's probably a more consistent way to throw than hope that the enemies get in a certain position relative to you and press the button that would throw them. This game is absolutely worth a try if it interests you at all. At the very least, you may have a bit of fun for it with 20 minutes if it ends up not being your thing. I think you should check it out if you're interested in beat-em-ups. Alright, I have now talked about and played, pretty much, besides peripheral games, every Super Nintendo game released in the first year of the Super Nintendo's life cycle. This sure has been a journey. If you like these videos, please like it. If you'd like to see me talk about more old or obscure video games, please subscribe to my channel, as that's exactly what I do. I'm now going to take a bit of time to ask for some direct feedback from viewers. It's gonna take a bit, so if you'd like to go watch my other content now instead, that is fine. But I'd love some real feedback from real people, so I'm currently imploring you to stick around. This series has been my primary content creation focus for 2 months, and while it hasn't gotten no views, they generally get like 5 views when I post a video, with usually only 1 or 2 people watching the whole thing, and then they sit and gather dust. That must mean I'm doing something wrong. So I'm gonna put the rest of this series on hold for now, and with that in mind, my main question for you, viewer, is what else would you like to see from me? It can be specific games or video ideas or whatever you want to say, but I'm gonna work on other projects here for a bit. The fact that my stream VODs that take infinitely less effort to produce get so many more views so much more easily than these videos has deflated my ego a bit. And I understand maybe these videos just aren't good, but I do think the topic is part of their performance, as I don't think these videos are truly as bad as they perform. I also just want to be honest about the amount of work I have to put into for these videos, so I have to play something between 5 to 8 video games for an hour-ish. I often do less than an hour, but that's besides the point. I have to write an entire script, I have to record that script, and I have to edit the audio for that script, and I have to edit the video for that script. And that's a lot of stuff to do for such a long time with such a consistent pattern, and I feel like my more recent full series videos haven't even performed as well as the earlier videos. And I feel like these more recent videos are better, and they're performing worse. And since that's the case, I kind of just need to clear my head for a bit. Working on a couple other videos right now, but I'm definitely looking for some serious feedback from my audience that I do have here to make sure I'm not moving too far from what the people who are already here want to see. Also, if you're somehow still here and haven't watched all my other SNES videos, you can start there and check out those videos. Doesn't really matter where you answer this question, as I'll see it wherever. I had fun making this series, or I'd have stopped already, but playing a bunch of different games and finding interesting things to say about them every week is not an easy thing to do, and I prefer to make deeper dives on specific games for a bit, as opposed to... And the Super Robot Wars series happening now will keep going, but maybe the only stream VOD series I do on this channel, unless someone says otherwise. Like, if you want to keep seeing my stream VODs with, super minimal editing and cutting up, then that's fine. You can say that. But that series gets like 5 copyright claims due to the anime and game music for every video I post. Once that series finishes, I think I'll just stick to scripted content on this channel. Again, if you like the scripted content and the stream VODs being in the same place, tell me. But generally, I know that's not actually what you're supposed to be doing. It's just since I'm not established at all, I'd rather have all my content in one place. On that note, if you have a Twitch and you like my YouTube or Twitch, like my YouTube content or my stream VODs, could you go follow me on Twitch? I'd really appreciate it. And share my videos with your friends if you think they might like them, if you're willing. I know it sounds like I'm begging here, but I could die working a job I hate tomorrow, so whatever. If you've watched this video this far, thank you so much. You're a real one, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.